Alastair pulled his sleek saloon car onto the gravel drive of his secluded cottage in the Cotswolds, desperate for a reprieve from his high-pressure life in London. The wooden gate, however, gave him pause. It had been freshly painted a soft, duck-egg blue, a color he certainly hadn't chosen. He stepped out gingerly, his hand instinctively clutching his chest. The specialist's orders echoed in his mind: no stress, no exertion, and 2 months of absolute stillness following his heart scare. The transformation of the grounds was startling. Where waist-high weeds once choked the path, vibrant flower beds now bloomed in the afternoon sun. The lawn was neatly manicured, and the windows sparkled. As he pushed the gate, it glided silently on well-oiled hinges. Then, he heard them, the high-pitched giggles of children coming from within. Alastair's heart hammered against his ribs. He took a long, shaky breath, counting to 3 as his cardiologist had taught him, and stepped onto the porch. Through the open door, a little girl dashed across the sitting room, clutching a rag doll. A baby crawled across a plush rug Alastair didn't recognize. On his sofa sat a young woman, cradling a basket of laundry. When she looked up, her face turned ashen. "Who are you?" Alastair demanded, his voice trembling. The woman, Elena, dropped the basket, clothes tumbling to the floor. I can explain. Explain what you're doing in my house." Alastair stepped inside, his hands shaking. The girl, Sophie, scurried to hide behind her mother's skirts, while the baby, Leo, began to wail. "Please, sir," Elena pleaded, scooping up her son. "I had nowhere else to go." The house appeared abandoned. You thought you could just break in?" Alastair felt a throbbing pressure behind his eyes. "This is trespassing. I'm calling the police." "No. Please." Elena stepped forward, her eyes wide with desperation. "Just give me a few days to find somewhere. My husband passed away, I lost my job, and we were evicted. We've been living in our car." Sophie tugged at Elena's skirt. "Mummy, are we going to live on the street again?" The word again hit Alastair like a physical blow. He rubbed his face, feeling the weight of the stress he was supposed to avoid. "Listen," he said, trying to steady his tone. "I came here to recover. I need absolute peace." "I understand, sir." Elena wiped a tear. "Give us 2 weeks. I promise we'll leave quietly." Alastair surveyed the room. It was spotless and smelled of lavender and home-cooked stew. Through the window, he saw a flourishing vegetable patch in soil he'd always thought was barren. 10 days, he conceded. "But I stay here too. It is my house." "Thank you, sir." "Truly." Elena hugged her children tight. "We won't be any trouble. You take the master suite, we'll stay in the small room at the back." "I'm Alastair," he sighed. "I'm Elena. These are Sophie and Leo." An awkward silence followed, broken only by the ringing of Alastair's phone. It was Dr. Henry. "Are you settled, Alastair? Remember, no work, no stress, just total rest." "Henry, there's a slight complication," Alastair muttered. "There are people living in my house, a widow and 2 children. Squatters, then call the authorities." Henry barked. Alastair looked at Sophie, who was watching him with wide, fearful eyes. "No," he said quietly. "I've given them 10 days. The call with Dr. Henry had barely ended when the front door swung open. "Elena, I've brought those vine tomatoes you wanted." An elderly man with a crown of white hair marched in, stopping dead when he saw Alastair. This was Mr. Higgins, the proprietor of the village post office. His eyes widened behind thick spectacles. "Good heavens, you must be Alastair." He dropped the bags and extended a hand. "Wonderful to finally meet you. Elena hasn't stopped talking about you." Alastair blinked, utterly bewildered. Talking about me? What on earth did she say? How you were coming home, of course. That you'd finally be together. Mr. Higgins gave Alastair a conspiratorial nudge. Long distance is a chore, isn't it? But look at you now, a proper family unit. Elena's face turned a deep shade of crimson. Mr. Higgins, please. It's not like that. I never said. Oh, don't. Be modest, girl. The old man winked. A fine couple you make. Those kids have a father figure at last. Alastair opened his mouth to protest, but the words died in his throat. The sheer awkwardness was stifling. Mr. Higgins, you've got it all wrong, Elena cried, her voice mortified. I'm waiting to leave, not for him to arrive. The old man's jolly smile faltered. He looked from Elena to the confused children, then back to Alastair's stony expression. Ah, he whispered, the penny finally dropping. I see. My mistake. He placed the tomatoes on the table with exaggerated care. Well, I'll be off then. If you need anything, Elena, just shout. As the door clicked shut, Alastair ran a hand through his hair. This was spiraling out of control. Look, he began, but Elena interrupted him. I'll make dinner, she said, her voice brittle. You must be famished after the drive. There's no need. I insist. It's the very least I can do. She hurried into the kitchen, the children trailing behind her like little shadows. Alastair sat on his sofa, which felt strangely foreign now, and leaned his head back. 10 days. He just had to survive 10 days of this domestic chaos. Soon, the aroma of garlic and fresh herbs wafted through the house. His stomach gave a traitorous growl. He couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten a meal that didn't come out of a plastic takeaway container. Sophie peeked around the kitchen door, still clutching her doll. Are you really cross with us? She whispered. Alastair struggled to find an answer. The girl tilted her head. Mummy cries when people shout. Before he could respond, she vanished back into the kitchen. The next morning, Alastair woke to the scent of fresh coffee. It was 6 a.m. He found Elena in the kitchen, hair tied in a practical bun, wearing a floral apron. Good morning, she said softly. Coffee is in the pot. Toast is ready. Alastair sat at the table, watching her move with a graceful efficiency. You're up early, he noted. It's the only time the house is quiet, she replied, setting a mug before him. He took a sip. It was exactly how he liked it. Dark, strong, and scorching hot. How did you know? I found the beans in the back of the larder. I assumed you had discerning taste. He ate in silence, struck by a sudden wave of melancholy. It had been years since someone had prepared breakfast for him. His phone buzzed. It was Dr. Henry again, checking his vitals. I'm coming over this afternoon for a proper checkup, the doctor insisted. I'll tidy up, Elena said after he hung up. I'll make some tea and scones for the doctor. It's part of our deal. I'll look after the house while I'm here. I didn't ask for a maid, Elena. No, she said firmly, but it's the right thing to do. By mid-afternoon, Alastair was lounging in the garden when Dr. Henry's muddy 4x4 rattled up the drive. The doctor climbed out, stethoscope already swinging from his neck. So, this is your sanctuary, is it? It looks remarkably well kept for a place that's been empty for 3 years. I have help, Alastair muttered. As they entered the house, Henry whistled. Spotless. Did you do this? No. Elena did. Before Alastair could explain further, Elena appeared with a tray of tea and warm, buttery scones. Good afternoon, doctor. I thought you might be parched. Much obliged, Rose. Elena. Henry smiled. She excused herself gracefully. Once she was out of earshot, Henry turned to Alastair. She's lovely. And she's clearly turned this mausoleum into a home. Don't start, Henry. She's leaving in 9 days. Sit down and shut up, Henry commanded, beginning his examination. He checked Alastair's blood pressure and listened to his heart. Everything is stable. You're behaving yourself then? No work. No stress. Though sharing a house with a stranger and two toddlers isn't exactly relaxing. Henry packed his bag, a thoughtful look on his face. Actually, Alastair, this might be exactly what you need. Loneliness is a silent killer. You were a machine in London, all profit margins and no soul. Look at this place. There's life here. You need human connection more than you need beta blockers. I'm going back to the firm the moment I'm cleared, Alastair insisted. Henry pointed out the window to where Elena was hanging laundry while Sophie chased a butterfly. Are you sure? Or are you just beginning to see there's a different way to live? After the doctor left, Alastair sat on the porch. He watched Leo crawling on a blanket on the grass while Elena weeded the vegetable patch. Alastair, come and play, Sophie shouted, waving a plastic spade. I'm fine here, thank you, he called back. Elena walked over, balancing Leo on her hip. Is everything all right? What did the doctor say? I'm fine. All normal. He paused. Why did you choose this house, Elena? It's so far from everything. Because it felt like it had a heart, she said softly, looking at the rolling hills. It just needed someone to wake it up. Why haven't you been here in so long? Work. I thought I didn't have the time. Sometimes, Elena mused, we have to lose the choice to make the right one. That night, Alastair couldn't sleep. The house was full of unfamiliar sounds, the soft creak of floorboards, the wind whistling through the eaves, and Elena's muffled humming as she lulled Leo to sleep. At 2:00 a.m., he went to the kitchen for water and found the light on. Elena was hunched over the table, surrounded by scraps of paper and a calculator. Can't sleep? He asked. She jumped, hiding the papers. Just doing some sums, planning for the move. Alastair caught a glimpse of the figures. They were grim. She was trying to stretch a tiny amount of money to cover a deposit and rent in a market that was clearly beyond her means. I'll find something, she said, her voice cracking. We still have 8 days. She hurried out, leaving the weight of her desperation hanging in the dark kitchen. For the first time in years, Alastair's chest tightened, not from his illness, but from a pang of genuine empathy. The following morning was shattered by a sharp cry. Alastair bolted from his bed and found Elena collapsed on the bathroom floor, clutching her ankle. I slipped, she gasped, her face white with pain. Leo spilled some water. I didn't see it. Don't move. Alastair carefully lifted her. She was surprisingly light, her frame thin from months of worry. He carried her to the sofa and applied an ice pack. Sophie stood by, her bottom lip trembling. Is Mummy broken? She'll be fine, Sophie. Just a sprain. She needs to rest. I can't rest, Elena protested, trying to stand. The children, the house, I'll handle it, Alastair said firmly. Doctor's orders. I'm a patient. I know the drill. For the first time, Elena gave him a genuine, radiant smile. Thank you, Alastair. The next few hours were a descent into chaos. Alastair discovered that looking after 2 children was far more taxing than managing a multi-million-pound merger. Leo cried for his mother. Sophie spilled blackcurrant squash on the rug, and Alastair managed to burn the porridge so badly the smoke alarm went off. By noon, he was covered in baby food and sweat. How do you do this every day? He asked, breathless, as he tried to change a particularly difficult nappy. Elena laughed from the sofa. Practice. Lots of practice. Sophie wandered in, holding a ginger cat. Uncle Alastair? Barnaby is hungry. Uncle Alastair? He blinked. Alastair is too posh, Sophie explained. Uncle Alastair sounds kinder. He sighed, defeated. Fine. Where's the cat food, then? Just as he was scrubbing the floor, Mr. Higgins arrived with several heavy bags of groceries. Heard there was a mishap. Brought some supplies. He walked in uninvited, taking in the scene of Alastair holding a squirming Leo. What a lovely domestic picture. Mr. Higgins, I've just sprained my ankle, Elena explained. Say no more. I'll whip up a proper Sunday roast for everyone. The old man bustled into the kitchen humming a tune. Half an hour later, the house smelled of rosemary and roasting chicken. Against Alastair's protests, Mr. Higgins insisted they all sit together. "A house isn't a home unless there's a family at the table," he declared. "We aren't a family," Alastair corrected. "Not yet, perhaps." The old man winked. As they ate, the conversation turned somber. Mr. Higgins asked about Elena's husband. "It will be a year in December," she said quietly. "He was in construction. An accident on site. It was over in an instant. I tried to keep the flat, but without his wage, well, you know the rest. And you ended up here," Alastair said, his voice softer now. "I'm sorry, Alastair. I know it was wrong of me to stay here." "Sorry?" Mr. Higgins snorted, his mouth full of potato. Generosity would be letting her stay permanently. The house is massive, and it was rotting before she arrived. "It needs life, Alastair. It needs these children. It's not that simple," Alastair snapped. "It is. You adults just love to make things complicated." Mr. Higgins stood up abruptly. "I've said my piece. I'm leaving before I get cross." He slammed the door on his way out. The silence that followed Mr. Higgins' departure was deafening. Sophie looked up from her plate, her eyes brimming with tears. "Are we really leaving, Mummy?" "Yes, darling. In a few days. But I love it here. I love the garden and Barnaby." Sophie burst into tears and fled to her room. Leo, sensing the distress, began to wail. Elena tried to stand to follow them, but winced, her face contorted in pain. "Stay put," Alastair commanded. "I'll go." He entered the children's room. Sophie was buried under a duvet, sobbing into her doll. Alastair sat on the edge of the bed. "Sophie, look at me." She peeked out, her face tear-streaked. "Why do we have to go? Don't you like us?" Alastair looked around the room. It was filled with drawings Sophie had made. Bright, happy scenes of the cottage. He realized then that his peace and quiet in London had actually been a hollow, echoing silence. This house had never felt more alive than it did right now. "It's not that I don't like you," Alastair said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's just, I forgot how to share." He walked back into the sitting room. Elena was staring out the window, looking defeated. "Elena," he said. She turned, expecting the final notice to leave. "The doctor said I need 2 months of rest. I've realized I can't manage this place on my own. And clearly, I'm a disaster at childcare." Elena frowned, confused. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that 10 days isn't enough. I want you to stay, not as a squatter, but as a guest. Stay for the summer. Stay as long as you need to get back on your feet." Elena's eyes widened. "Are you serious? We'd be in your way." "No," Alastair smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. "I think I've been in my own way for far too long. This house needs a family. And frankly, I think I need one too." Sophie appeared in the doorway, her eyes hopeful. "Can we stay, Uncle Alastair?" Alastair knelt down and opened his arms. The little girl ran into them, hugging him tight. Over her shoulder, he saw Elena weeping, not with sadness, but with overwhelming relief. In the weeks that followed, Alastair's health improved more rapidly than any medicine could provide. He spent his mornings in the garden with Elena, learning how to grow more than just a bank balance. He spent his afternoons playing explorers in the woods with Sophie and Leo. The millionaire who had arrived with a broken heart found that the cure wasn't rest, but purpose. He didn't return to London at the end of the summer. Instead, he sold his penthouse and invested in the village, turning the old cottage into a permanent home for the family he never knew he needed. As they sat on the porch one evening watching the sunset, Mr. Higgins cycled past, tipping his hat with a triumphant grin. Alastair simply smiled back, holding Leo on his lap, finally understanding that the best things in life are the ones you never planned for.